This podcast is brought to you by Curate Investments. Each of our funds is managed by different teams of highly skilled people we have handpicked to look after your money. That is the art of investing. For more information, visit us at curateinvestments.co.za. Curate Investments is an authorized FSP.
Welcome to Honest Money. I'm Warren Ingram.
I'm Pieter Villiers.
We're starting a new series today, and I'll let Pieter give you some background on that. But what we are doing is probably it's possibly my favorite area of financial planning. Dealing with people who are hitting the point of retirement and where they go from there. So I'm looking forward to it. But I think you should give us a bit of background as to how we structure this and what we're doing in the series.
Yes, thank you. So today we're approaching the fourth series. So if the guys are joining now, we've had different types of series based on different types of age groups. So financial planning considerations, we started off with your early careers. You just started working up until the age of that around about 30, 35 years. Then we talked about the mid-career type of people. We call it the sandwich generation. That's about that 30 to 40, 45 age group. Then we spoke about your late career age group. So that's usually your 50 to 65 years. And now we're finally going to talk about post-retirement. So if we take the standard age of 65, we're going to talk about that, but it might be different. Some people might retire at 60, early retirement. Some might retire at 70. So that is the main umbrella topic for this series. And we're going to break it into 4 episodes. Today, we're just going to talk about the kind of fun and more so the emotional considerations of transitioning into this new phase of life. There's going to be a nice, relaxed and chilled conversation. And then in the other 3 episodes, we're going to cover more of the technical things, the financial planning strategies that we can think about, taxes, estate planning, all of those things that is actually becoming, if it hasn't been important yet, this is a phase of life where you don't want to make mistakes because now you're shifting from accumulating wealth to now decumulating, now drawing money from your hard work. So that is where we need to make sure we make good informed decisions. So I think maybe to start off, let's paint a scenario. We are now approaching that day. We've received notice. We're stepping out of the office. Let's say in the next 2 months. Maybe what's going on in the mind of a retiree at that point?
If my experience is anything to go by, there's usually a lot of swear words involved about hell, like it's coming now, and I've
real.
yeah, and gee, I haven't, I don't know what I'm going to do, and so I think a lot of the time we underestimate the trauma that someone goes through in that period. And so just to sketch, if you're not there, usually what happens is I think the trauma lasts about 2 years, by the way. So if you hit 65, somewhere around age 67, you become comfortable psychologically with where everything is. It's not so much a financial thing, but an emotional journey. And it's usually things like, how am I actually going to get money into my bank account so I can pay my expenses? Like mechanically, it's not so much a question of do I have enough and all of those things. It's the practicalities. Like, where do I actually send that money? And I don't want to rob Pieter to pay Paul, and so there's the picturing the journey, and then it sounds like a weird thing, but it's also trying to understand who you are when you don't have a title, and especially for the sort of people that have had very high pressure, big aspirational jobs. Company execs or business owners who identified themselves as business owners. Now you've sold your business. So who are you now? And often, I always talk to them about the triple D, death, divorce, depression. And that, it's not to say that that's what's going to happen to you. It's about saying, make sure that you've planned for things so that you don't end up in one of those. Because especially if you've had a very high pressure job, you operate at like a lot of stress, you're working long hours, you're on a plane all the time, whatever the deal is. If you don't have a game plan for what life looks like afterwards, what happens is you go home, you and your spouse get to know each other again because both of you have been extremely busy, and you go on the holidays that you planned or whatever, and then 3 months in, you've done all those things. And then you wake up on a Monday and you look at each other and you're still in your slippers and pajamas because you don't actually have a game plan. And often I find that's where the death thing comes in. It's about the body actually is not used to like going from high stress, high pressure to nothing. And so the divorce is because you actually haven't planned for what life looks like. Well, not the money, but what do we do together? When do we spend time? When do we each do our own thing? So often divorce is quite common at this stage of life. And then depression is around that thing of identifying who's Warren, like when he's not doing podcasts. Like what does he do? How does he identify as a human being? And what are his values and all of those things? And so I think that there's quite a lot to plan for. So I do think it's the golden years. If you get it right and you plan for life, I think, obviously we're financial planners, but this stuff, if you get it, if you have a successful retirement, it's because you've got meaning and purpose after work. You're not defined by your work. So I know it sounds like we're on the psychologist couch now, and that's okay, actually. We probably should be. But if you are watching, listening to us, and you're thinking, gee, I'm terrified about what to do next, I think it's just a bit of planning, a lot of communication with, if you've got a spouse, with your spouse, and then with friends, and figuring out what they've done. And obviously, listen to all of the episodes we're about to publish, because these things are doable and actually very nice to have this stage of life if you do it correctly.
Absolutely. And there's so many, it's probably one of the biggest transitions you'll make in life. You can look back in your lifetime moments that come up to your memory of like, okay, this has really shifted things for me. Getting married, getting your first kid, buying your first house, maybe losing a family member, so those things usually shake everything and changes the game completely. And retirement is nothing different to that. It's like changing the dynamic of not only financially, but also emotionally, psychologically. And a lot of what we do is the technical stuff, and we're going to get to that. But I think it's the emotional side is much more important, because if we don't align those two things, then whatever plan you have is going to fall apart, because you won't be present to actually action onto that. And I think what I found is when we focus on the destination so much, we kind of get lost on the journey towards it. And then when we finally reach the destination, you get to the point where like, so now what? So maybe you've built a career, worked incredibly hard to build up enough assets to one day retire. And that's what we usually, like 99% of what we talk about is saving for retirement. So we've hit retirement. So now what? All right, maybe I have enough, but now we need to fill a massive gap of purpose that has to be shifted towards something else. And I guess it's going to be different for everyone, because some people will reach that age and be sure they've got enough. They don't have to stress. Unfortunately, the reality in South Africa is that's not the case. I think recent statistics said about 6% of South Africans can continue living the same type of lifestyle post-retirement. So it's not a good statistic, but hopefully that will change with all the education that people receive now. But let's say maybe we've hit retirement and we're going from the active employment to like passive living almost. What are some of the things that you've seen retirees do? Like what do they go and do a bit of introspection, maybe some hobbies that they've always wanted to pick up and turn that into some sort of business almost to keep them busy? Or do they like to spend more time with grandkids? How do they fill that void?
Yeah, I think it's. I think there are a couple of strategies. So one is when you ask people that question, what's important to you? What does meaning and purpose look like when you're not defined by your career? For some people, they don't really have an answer. They haven't thought about it, and trying to nudge someone at age 50 to think about it, sometimes they're battered away. They just want to keep going. I often ask them the question. I say to them, if someone said to you, if a doctor said to you, look, I've got bad news, you are healthy now, but you're going to stay healthy for a year and then you're going to die. If you get a diagnosis like that, so you are healthy, you've got exactly a year left, what do you want to do with your time? Because you've got some time. And so that answer to that question might start to inform the things that give you purpose, give you meaning in your life. And so looking at that, because it can't just be that I'm going to go play paddle or mountain bike or golf, or it can't. It's when you've got a limited amount of time. Well, maybe for some people it will be. Good luck to them. So I think that's a very good question. If they still struggle with that, then asking the same question again, but to say, okay, now the diagnosis is you've got 24 hours left and you've got no more time. What are you going to regret having not done? And so it is a bit of a psychological exercise, but it allows people to start to visualize, uh, maybe a bit more clearly, because we can't all plan our lives like that, and not all of us are kind of forward thinking. Some of us want to live in the moment, and so I think that that's important. And what you're trying to do there is to say, let's say, in an average week when you're not traveling, whatever the deal is, like, you need 3 or 4 things that you have to do, 3 or 4 appointments that you have to keep every week. And so for some people, I've seen them, for example, go from being a telecoms executive to chairman of a charitable school. Uh, and it's not a full-time job that might even not pay at all, but what they're doing is committing time. Or there might be a charitable initiative where they say, look, I don't need to work, but I have value and I want to share that value. So paying it forward. Or they pick up a part-time gig, where they've got a skill that can be used and shared. And so instead of going for money specifically, you get some money. That's very nice. Always nice to have a bit of money, but 2 or 3 times a week you're doing something. So having that kind of a maybe a side gig or a side hustle that becomes something is very nice. Or mentoring, and often I think for the very bright, very engaged, people who are not tired of working, they're just tired of work. That's quite a nice thing, is to say, okay, great, I'm going to try and share my knowledge, and often one of the things people underestimate is a small business can't afford to pay a big salary to an executive. But if you're retired and you were an executive and you've got time and you're not so interested in the money, charging a business owner of a small company some kind of a mentorship fee where you actually get involved, not in running their business, but in helping that person grow and develop and sharing your expertise, that can be very fulfilling for both people. So, or sometimes you just start a side hustle, you just do something. I know of a retired brigadier general who ended up driving school kids of a special needs school to and from school every day. He loved the kids. He got to spend time doing something. It was an important thing to do. Those kids needed to get somewhere, and they couldn't pay anybody a proper salary. So he got himself a bus driver's license, and that's what he did. And I mean, no one in that school knew who he was before. And I always thought he was kind of a scary guy. And then they all just called him Worm, and they loved him and thought he was this cuddly guy. And so there are lots of things you can do to entirely change your life.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. So we recently went on that train to Elgin. It's like one of the old steam trains that it's almost like a nice day out excursion. And what was interesting to me was the people that kind of visualized the trains. Everyone was assigned to a different carriage. They were all of them were retirees, like in their 70s. And it was very interesting to me to see that, because then I asked the one person, like, is this like, are you guys part of the same community, or why are you doing this? Are you getting paid for this? He's like, no, I volunteer. I don't get. I get paid my petrol money to get to the train and back, but that's it. So every Saturday he's there. He's on the train. He takes everyone to the Algren and back, and he makes sure everyone is safe. And that fills his cup. That's what he's looking forward to the week, because he can spend a whole day, witnessing the nice, beautiful scenery, meeting new people, and serving a purpose. So it could be as simple as that. It's like, I don't want money. I just want to do this for fun. Sometimes the reality is that you may not have enough for retirement, and you need to fund your lifestyle, earn an income somewhere. And I think with the internet has really made that much more possible, with like online type of education programs. Because I mean, you don't have to spend too much time doing a bit of introspection to discover you've got a lifetime of knowledge and skills and experience, and you are the only person in the world that has the combination of mountain of value that you've built up in your specific route through life. So what you can do, and what I see people do now, is almost creating like little micro niches, or niches. So what happens is, let's say you are, let me use myself as an example. Let's say I was working as a veterinarian, then I became a financial planner. So in the world, there might be a lot of veterinarians or medical professionals that have been in that specific career and they want to make a career change. So now I've done that. I've walked the journey, and I can almost create like a program to help others, coach them through that transition. Now it might be something different for everyone. Everyone has their own type of combination of skills, knowledge, and experience. And what you can do is you can actually try and package that almost and start creating videos on platforms like YouTube or Instagram.
Yeah.
Just share your journey. And what you'll find is you'll build up a small community of people in South Africa, in the world, that has a similar kind of journey that they are on, where they are at a point where they are now, where they want to be, and they need someone to guide them through that transition. And you can almost productize that in a sense. You have like coaching calls where you can sit with someone and have a conversation, or you can create like an online educational program. The sky's really the limit, and I think that's what makes it so exciting, because I think a lot of people feel that if they've served a purpose in a specific career and that's gone, they almost feel that there's no more use of them, and that's not true. You've got a lot of value.
Yeah.
You just need to figure out, how do I change, or how do I convert that into something that looks a little bit different but serves the same purpose and has the same impact. And if it can earn some money in the process, that's a bonus. And if you need that, that is a way to go. And I've also met like one Opa that drives people to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning, because no Ubers drive that time. Like, I've been in that situation where I had an early flight and I couldn't drive myself. So I was finding like, why there's no Ubers? And then he was like, no, I do that. So he charges more because it's obviously early hours in the morning, but that's what he does, and that's how he funds his retirement. So it's just like observing the world, seeing where there are some potential problems or challenges, opportunities, something that you could solve. And in doing so, you find a new type of purpose.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
I think, don't underestimate that what you have is time.
Yes.
And so, one of the things you can do is find a way to give time to other people. A lot of the time now, people are double income, and so mom and dad are working like mad people to try and get by, and so what they've got is they've got income and they've got no time.
Yep.
And so if you've got time, and that means you can. I think it's interesting. Middle and high income parents, the thing that they grapple with the most is how to get their kids from A to B to C to D every single day. Like, these kids have got thousands of activities, and the parents are all working. And I always think that's such a natural, opportunity. Is parents need someone they can trust to move their kids reliably from A to B, and so that's an opportunity. I keep thinking about cooking. We don't all cook that much anymore, and lots of us would love a home cooked meal every day.
A healthy one, yes.
Yeah, well, even just a nice one. But and so just being able to get like home cooked food, that's not from a takeaway shop. Like, I think there are lots of things that people might have a skill that they just take for granted.
Yeah.
I think from experience in Joburg and Cape Town, there's a desperate lack of reliable handymen. Okay, we've already given 3 or 4 business ideas. Let's stop now. But the point is, you get the message. If you're listening to this and you've got time and you don't know what you're going to do, well, we've given you some ideas.
Yeah.
And maybe the very last one is, you're talking about online, and I think, online, like, if you speak English, and that's your first language, teaching English to people around the world and in South Africa who can't speak English, like, that's a valuable skill, and it's a commodity that people again need. So there might be ways of, you might have to do a course or 2 yourself just to get the teaching certification. You're not becoming a teacher, you're just teaching English.
Yeah.
And so there might be lots that you can do. I know I'm not sure I could do that, because I don't think I've got the patience, but if you've got the time and the patience, why not? So lots of ideas there. I think maybe also just, one of the things, around conversations, I think, it sounds funny, but a lot of the time people don't have conversations. If they're a couple, if they're married, they, as you were saying, they've been working towards this destination, forgetting that they might have another 30 or 40 years of life. And so it's really, kind of having the conversation about where do we actually want to live? Do we want to live in the big house? When kids are all out the house, we've retired, we've got time, but do we want to stay in a big house? If you live in a big city, do we want to do that? And my suggestion is, do not assume you know what your partner is thinking. It's quite interesting sometimes to realize how the two people in the couple are not on the same page. And especially in modern times where kids might be living all over the world, my other suggestion is you don't move to follow your kids, because you move to Australia because your kids are now living in Sydney. Number one, they might not be living in Sydney forever. They might be all over the place, or they might come back to South Africa when they realize that this is a much better country. And so now what do? You're stuck in Sydney, in a terrible place with people who speak funny. And then you have to support Australia. I mean, it's terrible. So I just think you've got to plan your life together. And so understand, you want to know where you're going to live. What does it look like? Maybe you use those first couple of years, once you've sold your big house, if that's what you've decided, and not buy another house. Decide to go and rent a house in the little coastal town that you've all dreamed about. And maybe you realize that's the best call you've ever made, and then you buy the house. Or you realize that actually it blows all the time. It's very windy, it's very cold, and actually you want to go and live on the high veld because at least the summers are nice and winters aren't so bad. Whatever the deal is, you don't know what those things are. But I think use the time to create the next stage of life together. If you're single, again, don't make those big decisions of, I've lived in Cape Town all my life, I'm now going to go and live on the West Coast, just because it looks nice. It might be the best call you've ever made, but go and live there in a rented place and experiment. Experiment with the jobs that you want to do if you are going to do those part-time things. But I do think have lots of conversations together. And if you've got adult children, it's also a great time to start saying, look, we've got whatever it is, the holiday house on the coast. We're tired of maintaining it, and you guys never go there. And so why are we keeping it? Are we keeping it for you? Do you want to take over the maintenance? All of those things, or can we sell it? And we'll all get together and meet somewhere else once a year. My last point, and I'm talking a lot, but my last point is also what happens late in life. Because a lot of people kind of put that off. They just say, "No, we're going to stay in this house forever." Okay. You're staying in a double-story, house, and at some point, if you're 85, your knees go. Stairs are not fun, and maintaining a big house is not fun. And if you or your spouse needs frail care, where do you go? You can't just pick up the phone and phone a frail care place and say, "Hey, I'm coming tomorrow. I need some frail care." They're going to say to you, "Well, number one, we're full. Number two, we've got a waiting list, and we give preference and priority to all the other people that are living here already."
Yeah.
So it's a real concept. And I always think the trauma of changing where you live, because it's always traumatic, whether you're 25 or 65 or 85, there's always trauma involved.
Yeah.
But that trauma is diminished if you make the decision proactively on the front foot. So I'm not saying at age 65, you now have got to go and live in a retirement village if you think that's like a prison sentence. But what I'm saying is plan it. Go and identify and explore and see what those things are like. And they might be as good as you think or as terrible as you think. And then you keep looking. But don't put everything off and hoping that life will just happen perfectly. Because unfortunately, if life happened perfectly all the time, there wouldn't be such things as financial planning.
So many PowerPoints there. And I think the whole switching houses is a massive, again, this is the financial element, but also the emotional one, especially if it involves an entire generation of family members. Your kids grew up there, you've got a big emotional attachment to that. It might at some point just be where you have to move out and sell and pack everything up. And I mean, it's probably quite dramatic to almost close that chapter of life. But also remember, you're opening up a new chapter. And hitting 65 sounds old, but you actually have 1/3 of your life still left. It's not the end. It's actually the beginning of an exciting new chapter. And because you now have so much experience and so much time, it's a very unique situation to be in. Because usually what I found is kind of have this triangle in life, and you can only pick two points. It's having money, having time, and having energy. You can't have all three at the same time. When you are young, you've got maybe time and energy, but you don't have a lot of income. If you're mid-career, you have a good income, and maybe you still have good energy, but you have no time. And at retirement, hopefully you have all three of those things. Hopefully you have saved up enough, you've got enough income, you're living healthily, you've got enough energy, and now obviously have enough time. So just always go back to the point of we're trying to live intentional lives. So we're not trying to be reactive to what happens to us. We want to be proactive in our approach to money, approach to physical health, approach to emotional, spiritual, all of those holistic healthcare. And maybe one last point on health. This is one of the expenses that's going to become one of your biggest line items in your budget. And not only because you are at an older age and just statistically you're more prone to develop conditions that's going to cost more, but the rising cost of medical care is also far escalating past inflation. So that is very important. And we'll touch on that more in future episodes on how do we actually think about that in a financial planning context. But at that age, you still need to be active. You still need to go for the walks and maybe even go to the gym, because what you are now doing in that, say, 65 to 75 year is going to determine your 85 to 95 type of lifestyle that you can live. And frail care is going to most likely happen at some point in time. It's not something to fear. It's just a natural progression of life. But you can try and build a very healthy, long, sustainable retirement by just being proactive in your approach to health and wealth, which I think goes very hand in hand at that point.
I think we should leave it there, but I wouldn't mind. Maybe I'm kind of catching you off guard here, but I wonder if then in the next episode we shouldn't start to talk about just doing proper estate planning now. How do you actually talk about the money going from one spouse to the other and then to the next generation or to whatever? Because I think it's not a nice thing to think about a lot of the time, but it's an absolute necessity. And I think going from working to retired, that is a very good natural point to then go and look at your estate planning, and just all you actually want to do is just get it done, make sure it's correct, and then you can ignore it for a while.
Yes.
But you don't want to not do anything until 75 or 80 or 85 or whatever the deal is, and then go, oh gee, there was a whole lot of stuff we should have done.
Yep.
So maybe we should do that as our next episode, and then call this a wrap.
Yes, I think we've covered plenty. Hopefully we've opened up the conversation to many thought patterns. If you are in that phase of life, or maybe you are watching this and your parents are close to retirement, share the video. Let us know in the comments if you have any specific questions or challenges in that age group. We always love to hear what you guys think, and it also helps us to understand what type of content we need to create. This is probably one of the age groups we haven't talked about a lot in our previous episodes.
Yeah.
So definitely make sure to subscribe if you're on YouTube, and to watch the next 3 episodes, where we're going to unpack it further with estate planning, taxes, investing, and essentially help you to know, do I have enough? How do we get to just having that, already being in that mindset, I think already makes life easy. So quite exciting topics ahead of us.
Thank you so much for watching. And as always, if you've got suggestions for future topics, please put them in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer all your questions as we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Curate Investments. Each of our funds is managed by different teams of highly skilled people we have handpicked to look after your money. That is the art of investing. For more information, visit us at curateinvestments.co.za. Curate Investments is an authorized FSP.